So my name is Petteri Kivimäki, and yeah, I come from the Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions, so NIS for short. And my topic is X-Road as a platform to exchange MyData. I'm not going to talk about legal interoperability today. I'm going to concentrate on technical interoperability. The key idea of MyData is that an individual is in control of who can access or use his or her data. In addition to the personal data, also other data like consents and access logs, they are transferred between different parties. All the data that is transferred, it is sensitive, so the data exchange layer, it must be secure. There are also many different parties involved in the process, so interoperability is also a very important aspect. And that's where X-Road comes into play. So, how many of you have heard about X-Road before? Oh, surprising, quite many. That's a positive surprise. So what is X-Road? X-Road is an open source data exchange layer solution that provides secure and standard way to exchange data over public internet. X-Road is used in Finland and Estonia as a nationwide data exchange layer solution. It's open source, it's free for anyone to use, download, modify. So this is not a sales pitch. You can have access to X-Road if you want anytime. X-Road is a centrally managed distributed system. What it means in practice is that X-Road is managed centrally by a governing authority that in Finland is the Population Register Center, Väestörekisterikeskus. And the governing authority decides who can join the ecosystem and who cannot. In Finland, the ecosystem is open and anyone can join. The main idea of the central management is that the identity of every organization and their access point, that is called security server, is known and verified. The identities are verified using public key infrastructure, so certificates that are issued by a trusted certification authority. X-Road creates a trusted network between the member organizations and their security servers. However, the data exchange, it always happens directly between the data provider and data consumer. So, directly between the security servers, and that's why I said earlier that it's a centrally managed distributed system. The security server takes care of several things. It creates a secure data exchange channel between different access points, and in addition, all the messages processed by a security server, they are digitally signed, time-stamped, and logged. So it is possible to verify afterwards that the data has not been tampered. In addition, X-Road also provides features regarding access rights management. So when a service is published to X-Road, it doesn't mean that all the other user organizations are automatically allowed to access and use the service. The data provider is responsible for managing the access rights and decides who can access the service and who cannot. The idea is that X-Road is used as a data exchange layer for all kinds of data related to MyData, so the actual personal data, consents and access logs. And X-Road provides several built-in features that are beneficial. In this case, organization level authentication, machine-to-machine authentication, standardized messaging model, non-repudiation of messages, access rights management, message routing, and transportation layer encryption. Here is an example of the message flow when data is exchanged via X-Road. All the data using services have access to all the data sources. And now we are not talking about data consumers and data providers in general in X-Road context, but we are talking about data using services and data sources in MyData context. And this is implemented using a feature provided by X-Road, which is called global groups. Global groups, they are kind of, well, you know what user groups are. So they are user groups inside X-Road, but in X-Road context, user is not an end user, not a person, but it's a consumer information system. So in MyData context, user is a data using service. So there are these global groups, and there is a single global group for data using services, and data sources then grant this group access to all the MyData services or APIs that they have published to X-Road. So in this way, the access right management on information system is really easy and simple, because the data sources only need to grant access to a single group and not to every data using service individually. That provides data using services access to the services on API and service level. But of course, that's not enough. It doesn't mean that they can fetch anyone's data from the data source based on that authorization. In addition, consents created by individuals are needed, and they are maintained and stored by the MyData operator. And when we think about the message flow, the idea is that first the data using service checks from MyData operator if a verification, valid consent exists, and verifies it. If a consent exists, then the request is sent to the data source. And first thing that the security server of the data source does is that it checks that the data using service is a member of the global group that grants access to MyData data sources. If everything's okay, the request is forwarded to the data source. And then the data source has two alternatives. It can either trust that the data using service has checked the consent and everything's okay, and return personal data based on that, or it can verify that the consent exists by itself. So the first alternative, that the data source trusts the data using service, it's easier to implement, and it creates less overhead, but of course it leaves the door open for unauthorized use. The second option, the data source verifies the consent, it is more secure, but of course technically it is more changes are needed on the data source side, and there is also additional overhead. From X-Road point of view, both alternatives are okay. The response is returned via the security servers, and the security servers log timestamped and signed messages. And those logs, they can then be used to provide a centralized view to access logs, and they can also be used for detecting unauthorized use of an individual's data. So if we think about the scenario where the data source trusts the data using service and does not verify the consent, again, it's extremely important that unauthorized use can be detected even afterwards. And that can be done using the logs. So this slide goes into more detailed level how X-Road works. The main point behind this slide is to talk about the identifiers used by X-Road and how they also affect on the MyData data model, especially regarding consents. So in X-Road, every information system and service has an identifier. These are the identifier, and X-Road uses them for routing the messages and also for access management. So in this case, this is the identifier of our data using service. It is registered here on the central server of X-Road by the governing authority that also maintains the global group for MyData clients. And as we can see, the identifier is member of that group, and then information of the registered clients and those groups, it's distributed automatically to all the security servers, and then the administrator of this security server can use that group and grant access to all the MyData services that are available through this security server. So this is how X-Road works internally, but then also the MyData operator must register these identifiers as they must be included in the consents. So this is a very simple example data model, but from X-Road's point of view, what is needed at least so that this model could work. So of course we need the identifier of the individual. In this case, we use the social security number. And then the data using service is identified using the service identifier, and the same goes with data source. And this information, of course, it doesn't have to be visible to the end user, because this kind of codes and identifiers, they really don't say anything. But technically, they must be there in the background. X-Road provides quite many things regarding security and interoperability that provide a good starting point for MyData implementation. However, X-Road alone is not enough to answer all the open questions. For example, semantic interoperability, common business data models, standardized business APIs, MyData operator, how the consents are verified. Those things all have to be resolved whether there is X-Road or not. Another quite an important topic that is not mentioned here is legal interoperability. Like I said, that I'm not going to talk about it, but now I have to mention it, because the idea how the user rights access management is dealt in this model. It assumes that it's legally okay to just grant access. For example, if we're talking about the population register, that you have one group and you don't control who is the member of that group. Technically, yes, it is very simple. legally probably not so simple. So of course that kind of things must be considered too. But I left them out of this presentation on purpose, and I wanted to concentrate on the technical aspects, because that's my area, and the legal side not so much. Thank you.